have some closing comments from Sinclair Vass. He's the Chief Commercial Officer here at Velodyne Lidar. Velodyne, again, sponsoring today's event. Thanks so much, Sinclair, for being with us to close us out.
Yeah, sure thing. So, yeah, thanks. Appreciate the chance to round off this very interesting and informative discussion. I'm actually pretty new to the LiDAR industry. I came in from more of the telecommunications and the consumer electronics world. I started Velodyne about eight months ago, so it feels like a lifetime already. But really, why I joined was the clear drive and dedication the Velodyne team had towards this safer, this more efficient, this more sustainable world. It was really very much across all the discussions I had with Velodyne that was where their head was at, and I'm really proud to be part of this team. Obviously, the great work environment, the pay and the benefits also helped, and we are hiring. So if you know anybody, we're always keen for referrals. I would say the impact of LiDAR, that was really brought home to me a couple of months ago. Velodyne did a series of crash tests. We did these in poor lighting conditions, so really sort of, if you imagine twilight type of lighting or early into the night phase. What we did is we took a standard car, we implemented Velodyne Lidar with an automatic emergency braking system, and we compared that head-to-head against let's call it a well-known brand who touts advanced autopilot features, which is basically relying on camera and a radar system. So we put them head-to-head, and we had various crash test dummies in crossing the road, and we basically compared light for light to see what the different systems would see and not see. And I would say, the LiDAR stopped every time, no injuries, very close at times, but it saw all the different crash test dummies, be it, a baby stroller, be it somebody crossing the road, even somebody lying on the road. If you were on the camera LiDAR car, you probably didn't want to be that crash test dummy, since they basically took them out every time. So for me, that was obvious. You have to have LiDAR as part of the safety in automobiles and other fast-moving vehicles. And really, I see it as my job, as the job of the Velodyne team, to accelerate that and make that adoption happen faster. Luckily, from what I heard today, I'm not alone in that belief. And so what I wanted to do was just take a few minutes to summarize the key things I heard over the last 3 hours or so, and really, again, just emphasize some of the points that we have and the benefits that we have as a company that's supplying LiDAR. So we started off with Christina on the Velodyne team. What she was talking about was, recently, I think she said 18.4% increase in traffic fatalities. So really that trend, also touched on by later speakers, where year on year, we were improving traffic safety. Well, that sort of stopped. If anything, it's reversed. And Christina also mentioned 76% of these fatalities were in night or low light conditions. So exactly as I previously described, the type of scenario where LiDAR really, really excels. Also, Christine talked about the efficiency of traffic flow, the desire to reduce pollution and make the environment more sustainable. And that currently, it's a key topic at in my home country with the ongoing climate summit right now. So I believe with the LiDAR on cars, with the LiDAR also simply, as John Barad mentioned in one of the later presentations, actually on traffic intersections, just making sure the traffic flows smoothly, it flows efficiently, you're reducing the carbon dioxide emissions. So then Mark Rosekind, from Zoox, he was really talking about stop the lurching, stop this, we make improvements for a while on road deaths and then we have a setback. They're really driving a steady focus to decrease deaths on the roadways. The belief was we could get to zero in 30 years, and really without the safe systems, the safe technologies, really making that automation, taking that automation level up, that's a very hard goal to achieve. Human behavior is fundamentally tough to change, and the technology will help us mitigate some of our our less good habits. He talked about the EV trifecta of safety, sustainability, and mobility, and really how that makes a difference to society. And also how the pandemic has really driven the making goods delivery an indispensable part of the infrastructure. Also we saw from Mark really some pretty cool pictures of how the Zoox vehicle is constructed, really thought through for autonomy start to finish. So fully electrified, bi-directional driving, sliding doors so you don't take out the cyclist driving past, built for ride sharing, very scalable and very maneuverable. What I actually found very impressive was on that particular vehicle, you could still happily exceed the freeway speed limits in California. So it also designed for high-speed driving. Then there was a safety panel. So Ed headed that, and then we had Kartik, Burhan, and Nandita from Velodyne. What I heard was on that one self-driving car, it has to have the same mental model as the human, which is this enormous AI challenge. So how do you do that? Well, it's the classic, how do you eat an elephant? You break it into small chunks. Well, so these break it into solvable chunks where you define a safety framework, you design safety in, safety by design day one, and you drive within your own company and within your supply base and across the whole thing, you fundamentally a safety culture. I'm very interested to hear also the concepts of borrowing from the aerospace, the rockets, high-speed rail, giving us critical learning. So why reinvent the wheel where some of these guys have already solved these problems? Albeit definitely, the road challenge is very different in terms of some of its unique features. Then I think sensor fusion came up. And again, this is a key problem that a lot of my customers are working hard on. No one solution, obviously LiDAR is the best solution, and I would say that working for a LiDAR company, but you do need other solutions because all the different sensing mechanisms, be it cameras, be it radar, be it LiDAR, they all have strengths and they all have weaknesses. So how do you optimize the overall solution so that you have maximum chance of detecting that pedestrian, of making the right decisions in your AI? And so really the work around that is going to be critical as we go forward. The next panel we had was really about smart infrastructure. So this drive to this Vision Zero drive. So Laura, Suzanne, George, and John covered this panel. Interestingly, 90% of crashes are human error. So even with the technology we have today, human beings are still finding a way to mess up. So again, the concept of technology being vital. You don't have these systems thinking, taking the human element out of the equation is going to be probably is going to be impossible to get to zero fatalities. Connected vehicles was discussed and how that plays a critical role, and how the data can be taken and can generate education, can also generate law enforcement strategies, so that the humans who are still driving the cars have it becomes clear to them how their actions do cause, in some cases, bad outcomes. The belief here with really using that connected vehicles, you could reduce accidents by 82%. Smart intersections, so that was discussed, where the concept of putting LiDAR on poles with the appropriate perception software can really improve dynamics of urban environments. So reducing accidents, really importantly, spotting near misses. So let's not wait for the accident to happen, let's spot the near miss and let's correct the intersection before the bad thing happens. And really also the ability to detect a cyclist, a pedestrian, a child, and react accordingly. That's where these types of technologies can come into play. Also, real benefit of LiDAR is privacy. If you've been to China, you've been to London, you've been to many cities, you can see the number of cameras up there. And while maybe not quite so fast in China, I think in many places there is a backlash to saying, I don't want to have my face tracked everywhere I go. And the beauty of LiDAR is that that's able to provide pure 3D map, get all the data you need without capturing people's faces. So these privacy concerns are addressed. I really liked also hearing in that panel zero fatalities goal for the Texas in 2050. And really, again, what I'm looking to do as part, particularly as part of our intelligent infrastructure push, is to find, in every state we have in the US and also internationally, get people thinking this way and making sure LiDAR is enabling that type of drive. Then we moved on to James Owens from Neuro and the keynote speaker. And I think his point very clearly was mobility provides freedom, but it comes at a price. If you look at again, similar to previous speakers, the progress has slowed. The last 10 years, we've really not made the same progress in terms of safety as we've had in the previous 40. In fact, in many cases, we're going the wrong way, identifying alcohol, drugs, and speeding as the major driving factors. So again, how do you reduce that other than education and enforcement is automation. So really making sure whether it's passive alcohol detection, whether it's making ADAS and ultimately taking the driver out of the equation, you can basically eliminate or reduce these problems. And then very interesting discussion around zero occupant vehicles. So the concept of transporting goods, taking the cost of delivery down, addressing problems of inequity like the food desert, where these low-income communities physically can't get to places to buy healthy food and to get the services they need. So use these zero occupancy vehicles to get to the place. These are designed for low pollution, they're designed for improved safety. So overall, it enables this better ecosystem. And then lastly, the last panel was the robots tackling the dull, dirty, and dangerous, which, for me, this is actually probably the fastest growing market segment. And while we didn't talk dollars and cents, there's also a key requirement that we make LiDARs priced and the cost at the point where we can really enable the adoption and ultimately make sure that LiDAR as a business is healthy, with healthy margins and with healthy growth. And again, in the sort of the industrial space, this is something where we can tend to move faster, we can tend to move more aggressively, and the number of applications are so large that it really is a healthy, serviceable, addressable marketplace. So talking about whether it's robots, whether it's drones, really using these in areas where it's probably not a good idea to send humans, or humans don't want to go, or it's very monotonous task and is better suited to automation. And here again, LiDAR providing the eyes, providing that 3D map of the world, gives the really high opportunity to use these types of robots and industrial solutions, whether tracking fires, optimizing the firefighting capabilities, even later on predicting fires, whether it's last mile delivery type of applications, whether it's mapping and tracking in these harsh environments, they all need this LiDAR solution. And again, as one of the speakers said, you can't improve what you can't measure. So the data from LiDAR systems really allows people to improve their infrastructure, to improve the performance, the processes and the systems, whether it's a warehouse and moving goods around, or whether it literally is a drone tracking electricity cables and making sure that they're safe. This 3D mapping is critical to that. COVID, interestingly, came up several times, definitely driving this need for automation. The fact that people weren't able to be face-to-face, they weren't able to do these things, and the requirements of their lifestyles changed. It really was an opportunity for, honestly, the tech guys to move in. And then digital twin. So that was, again, towards the end of the discussions. How do you create if you like, an AR, VR environment so we can do our learnings in the virtual world and not in the real world? It's safer, it's more efficient. You can drive far more machine learnings if you can create these virtual environments. And again, we're seeing for LiDAR, lots of these applications type of emerging. And then finally in the panel, we talked around technology adoption. I think it's a human aspect you can't forget. We can make the technology as cool as possible, self-driving cars, etc. But if people don't want to adopt, they are not going to adopt, and you're not going to get paid for your solution. So really making sure these technologies are taking people into account, are easy to use, are not threatening, is absolutely critical, and that will only continue to be a requirement going forward. So just to wrap up, LiDAR as an industry, it's early stage, but it is maturing fast. And again, the drive towards products with high degree of scalability, attractive cost point, built-in quality, and addressing key applications is what Velodyne and I think the industry overall is really focused on right now. We're moving in many of these markets from an R&D phase into a serial production phase. So there, the scalability aspects are going to become more and more critical. And my goal, and the goal hopefully of everybody on the call here, is to really get LiDAR to the point where it is as ubiquitous as a camera is today, and really achieve this mission zero. So on behalf of Velodyne, I really want to thank all the other presenters. Really appreciated the insights. Thank the Velodyne team and who really spent a lot of time and effort setting this up, and ultimately really the people who listened in. And hopefully you guys can take away something from this and really help us drive this vision towards zero fatalities on the roads. So I think that's the key things I said. So maybe hand back to Charlie.
Yes, thank you very much. And Sinclair, if you didn't notice, everyone, it has a slight accent. And as you mentioned, his country, Scotland, where the world leaders are meeting right now. Nice tie in there. And what a great summary that you offered there. I, too, was impressed by the multiple references to rockets and aviation in terms of a safety development. I have to just bring up a recent event that happened in the news, that tragic death that happened on a movie site involving again, a loaded weapon. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because as we review that, we hear the word safety, 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 and protocols about safety. And how did that happen? And it was terrible and it was tragic. And it was a single person that suffered and died from that. This industry that we're talking about, as Mark pointed out in the beginning, we have tens of thousands of people that are unfortunately victims of death in the transportation sector. So we're starting with this larger number, trying to work down. And again, throughout the day, of course, you heard the word safety, safety protocols. And as was mentioned, it's already dangerous. And if we can just make it safer every year with each development, appreciate that. And it was great, as you mentioned. Sinclair, thank you again to Velodyne for producing this. And as a reminder, but those of you that registered, you'll get a response from the World Safety Summit from Velodyne Lidar about how to see the recordings of these panels, of these presentations that Sinclair just summarized, and then also the possibility of connecting to the speakers and the moderators to follow up on questions and, as Sinclair mentioned, to further develop as we go forward. World Safety Summit 2021 has come to a conclusion. We're already planning at this moment World Safety Summit 2022. Hope to see you all live. Everyone have a great rest of 2021. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll look forward to seeing you in 2022. Thanks again for joining us.